Yes, sir. Okay. I think we are live. How's it going, everybody? I hope you are doing well. I hope you can tolerate my crazy summer schedule. Thank you for being here. If you are here, we are going to jump into some of the Jordan Peterson. I'm behind. I'm behind in my schedule, of course. If we were really trying to jump on the sort of bandwagon, we would have been here a week ago. But last week, Jordan Peterson sort of became even more famous for his appearance on Jubilee, and I think a few things about this clip that have been missed. At least I haven't heard them in the, I haven't watched everything that was posted on this. A lot of people picked up on this Jordan Peterson Jubilee interview, not that this, and that's when something is being sorted out in the hive mind. We have often said that podcasting allows us to sort of examine the soul and and sort of look at the soul writ large, and and podcasting allows us to do that. Sorry about the ads here. YouTube, I have sometimes we air our grievances about YouTube here, and they gave me a free YouTube premium, a week or a month or something like that of free YouTube premium. And ever since that has expired, the ads are almost making YouTube unwatchable. So, yeah, they want me to get back on there. So, Miss McGillicuddy, what is happening? Thank you. Couldn't agree more with the title. Thank you. I appreciate it. We will try to justify the title and the thumbnail. That sort of does this is the moment right there. But yeah, a lot of chatter about this, and I think probably what happens is some people see that it's getting views, and so they make their own video. But there's a couple things I think, again, that have just been missed, even by Paul Vanderklay, Cale Zeldin, two people who I trust on the matters of Jordan Peterson far more than myself. I did not come into this sphere, this zone, this cultural movement, whatever this is, through Jordan Peterson. I mostly came in through Joe Rogan, and so I don't have the loyalty to Jordan Peterson that a Paul Vanderklay has, or a Cale Zeldin. They've been watching him longer. They know him better. But I picked up on something. When he came to Nashville that I put a link. I put a link to this playlist in the comments section if you want to check it out. But you actually see it here. Jordan Peterson wrestles. Who is Jordan Peterson really wrestling with? The Nashville We Who Wrestle with God review. And I developed it more after Jordan reappeared on Joe Rogan's podcast. Now, again, I think Paul did a great job here, particularly highlighting some of the comments from a channel I'm not really familiar with, and maybe we'll listen to a little bit of this, but just an appreciation for all that Jordan has done. And for my part, it was when Jordan went on Joe Rogan a couple years back that really did leave me, sort of stopped me in my tracks when I listened to it. But I think Jordan has come full circle and ended 1 inch lower than he began. And I think that God uses that process often, and we'll see what comes out of it for Jordan. I know that for me, I feel like I've gone through that process several times. Maybe you feel like you have as well. And it can be a refining time, or it can be a time that really does wear you out, depending on where your trust is. And so let's get into the video. Thank you again for being here. If you like this kind of thing, share this show with your friends. Hit the like button. Let me know in the comments what you think, all that stuff. Because right now, like I said, I'm on a little bit of a break from the normal rhythm of my podcast, a weekly podcast. I'm essentially paring it down to a weekly live stream right now. So thank you for the support that you show for this channel. I could use all the support I can get right now while I'm kind of not making as much content as the YouTube overlords would want you to make. So, okay. And again, sometimes I use Twitter to sift through my thinking. I hope that's okay. I hope that's not cringe or lame. Usually I do need to make it a little bit bigger for y'all. So let's go ahead and try and blow that up a little bit. The Jordan Peterson fanboys see this differently. Okay, I am thinking of Paul Vanderklay and Cale Zeldin there. No offense, guys. I mean that with all love. His Jubilee appearance is like the Douglas Murray-Dave Smith debate because it started to bubble up something under the surface. The Dave Smith-Douglas Murray one was essentially about who has the authority to speak on important matters. And the answer is we all do. And we can all be wrong, but we can all also kind of get close to the truth as well. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to have been there to say something that may, even out of dumb luck, be more true than what the quote-unquote expert might diagnose. And so I felt that the Jordan Peterson Jubilee moment was very much like that. More important than the clip is the example of how discourse has changed. I think that that is really important. I will unpack that more. I don't know exactly how. It's like in one way it has exposed the just narcissism that we all kind of have. But in another way, it has exposed the truth. And I really think that that's what happened. I think Jordan has been sifted by this Jubilee moment. Just like Douglas Murray, I think, was sort of sifted by his appearance on Joe Rogan. Socrates and Aristophanes, I forgot that I wrote this. Socrates and Aristophanes show us that poetry and philosophy show us the poetry versus philosophy war has consequences, of course. Aristophanes was a playwright and a comedian and was one of the key figures in getting Socrates put on trial, ultimately leading to Socrates drinking the hemlock. Danny Phil Talk, that's the guy that Jordan, oh, no, I messed myself up. That's the guy that Jordan is talking to in this clip. Oh, he wasn't just trying to debate Jordan. He was trying to win the crowd. That's the Aristophanes move. That's what the poet can do that the playwright, the poet can do and the philosopher can't. And Socrates lays this out. He basically says that he's already lost his trial because he's put on trial in front of a senate or a crowd of people. And as a philosopher, he can't really talk to the crowd like an individual. That's what was happening to Jordan. Like that, I really think that that's what was happening in a lot of ways. Jordan wanted to have a discussion. He wanted to talk philosophy, and he was not aware that he was really in that same kind of moment as Socrates was put on trial, and really the poets, the playwrights, the comedians can win the crowd, and the philosopher really can't. And Danny, I think, won the crowd in the sense that he was looking for a viral clip. And so the mob, the hive mind, the internet crowd saw something in that clip. They really did. And I think they saw something because there is something to see. He wasn't just trying to debate. He understood the moment. And so complain all you want about the clip being out of context. It still communicates a lot of meaningful information. Context doesn't matter. Context does not. I'm sorry, Cale. I think it does ultimately matter, but not to Danny, not to Danny's friend. Like they don't care about the context. What they saw, Don't bore me. Don't bore me with the context or the truth, or, of who Jordan Peterson really is. What they saw is Jordan Peterson got stung, and I think he did get stung. Jordan Peterson is worn out by being lukewarm. That's what he is. Jordan Peterson is worn out by being lukewarm, and Danny pointed that out, whether he was intentionally trying to get to that point or whether he just saw the opportunity there. That's essentially what he pointed out. And that's why I think this clip drew a lot of people's attention, not because there was nothing to see there. It drew a lot of people's attention because there was something to see there. I don't like being labeled as a Christian either, because I know how some people misunderstand what who a Christian is, and the term. I wouldn't agree with their definition. I think that is kind of Jordan's shtick there. Don't call me a Christian. I didn't say that, or what do you mean by God? Those have been Jordan's kind of trade secrets as he moves forward, and yet he didn't pull that out this time. He just was combative. But I'll accept the label as Christian, fully understanding that some people will I'll accept the label of Christian, knowing that the person that might be calling me a Christian doesn't understand that term the way I understand it. But my hope is that I can get them to shift their perspective. That's what it means to declare and demonstrate the gospel. It is the embodied word. It is the logos, but it's also embodied. So I can declare it and I can tell you truthful things, but if I don't embody those things, then I'm going to be worn out. And I think that's essentially what's happening to Jordan Peterson. So, Miss McGillicuddy, do you think the wrestling that Jordan B. Peterson is having is with the scholastic strongman of sorts? Maybe. Yeah. I think he's wrestling with himself. I think that was my point. Is it God? Is it really God who Jordan Peterson is wrestling with? Or is he wrestling with sort of himself? That being said, when a clinical... Yeah, this was the other thing. This is the other thing that not a lot of people pointed out. Danny, if you're listening, if you find this video somewhere in the void, when Jordan Peterson, when a clinic... Hold on. When you're sitting across the table from Jordan Peterson, and he says... And we'll get to the clip.
I'm sure you've attended.
When he looks at you like this... let's get this is when he's like, "Don't be smart with me." And Danny's got the look of, well, I will. He's like, okay, so we'll listen to it. But when a clinical psychologist looks at you like this and says, "You really are something," you might want to listen. Yeah. So, and physiology doesn't lie, right? I think Danny does have some things that maybe he would benefit from listening to Jordan Peterson talk a little bit more. But when Jordan Peterson sort of looks at you suspiciously like you might be a psychopath in the making or already one, then it's probably good to listen a little bit and just kind of like maybe tone back the narcissism a little bit. Okay, so let's a lot of flapping of the gums. We'll let and I know everybody wants to wash the bad taste of this Jubilee video out of their mouth. I'm sorry, this is all shot, no chaser. We're going right back into it, and thank you for being here. If you're here and you're still interested in sort of diagnosing this conversation, yeah, let me know if you have any questions along the way. Thank you again for being here. Let's make sure we have volume dialed, and we're going to come all the way back. And we'll just, for context, of course, we do need some context.
Why is that relevant?
Because you go to a Catholic church, don't you? Or you've attended recently. You're interested in Catholicism, aren't you?
Sure.
All right. Are you familiar with their doctrines?
Somewhat.
Okay, you're
Their
familiar.
doctrines are very
How do they
deep.
regard Mary?
Why are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
Yeah, why are you asking me that? That's not a bad question, because you're a Christian. Okay, this is where things change, right? Most people go up to Jordan and they say, "Are you a Christian?" And then he says, "What do you mean by Christian?" Danny says, "You are a Christian." And Jordan
Christians are very
How do they
deep.
regard Mary?
Why are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh,
You say that. I haven't claimed that. Okay. This is where things get really important. And I don't know who messed up. I don't know if it was Jordan. I don't know if it was Jordan's team. I don't know if it was Jubilee being deceptive. But Jordan says, I haven't accepted that term. Like, I haven't accepted that. But listen to what Danny says.
what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where you are right now.
Don't be a smartass.
Well,
and I mean
either you're a
'cause
Christian
I won't
or you're
talk
not.
to you if you're a smartass.
Oh, either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
I could be either of them, but I don't have to tell you.
You don't have to tell me. I was under the impression
private.
I was invited to talk to a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video.
So that's the moment right there. And the next one will sting also. And of course, Jordan Peterson, and I think Paul pointed this out in his video. Jordan Peterson is good friends with Jonathan Peugeot. Jonathan Peugeot will often ask, where are you standing? Where are you right now? And so I think it's ironic that I imagine Danny is oblivious to Jonathan Peugeot to some degree. Well, no, he probably watched some Jordan Peterson stuff, assuming that maybe some of them had an inkling of who might be on as, the guy that went on Paul Vanderklay's channel. I forget it, Craig. I think it was Craig. So right there, you know that Jordan's footing is pretty weak. He's like, well, I don't know. He gets confused. I think he didn't know. I don't know. I think he didn't know the title of this YouTube video. I either his team didn't tell him, or Jubilee maybe didn't have the title worked out, but the participants knew that they were coming to a Christian versus atheist debate. So if the participants knew, Jordan really should have known. Now, he either knew this, and I'll go through my Twitter thread, my X thread or whatever, here in a second, but like either Jordan knew that and he accepted the debate anyway. He accepted the terms of the debate, Christian versus atheists. Well, of course, he's not representing the atheists, and throughout the debate, you hear him represent sort of the Christian idea of how the Christian idea would answer this question. So he assumes the position. He doesn't maybe call himself a Christian, but he comes knowing that he's supposed to be defending the Christian position. So that's just freaking weird, man. Like, don't show up to a Christian versus atheist debate and then be like, well, I'm not a Christian. like what the hell is that? So that was the first one. And Danny pointed that out. And I know a lot of people, a lot of Jordan Peterson's friends, fans, looked at this as being dishonest. But I actually, again, I think it revealed something in Jordan that I think really needs to be addressed. Either Jubilee needs to come out and say, you know what, we actually never told Jordan the title of the video. We told our participants, but we failed to get Jordan the clear message. Or somebody on Jordan's team, or Jordan needs to come out and say, yeah, I mean, I fully accepted the terms of this debate. And then when I was pushed on being a Christian, I vacillated. I waffled. I didn't accept the label. Now, he also really unfortunately doesn't just say, what do you mean by Christian? What do you mean by Christian? You're calling me a Christian. How do you define those terms? And I think that's why. I think usually people ask Jordan, are you a Christian? He says, what do you mean by Christian? Here, Danny just says, you are. You are a Christian. You accepted the terms of this debate. I showed up expecting to debate a Christian. You're the person that I showed up. You're the person in the building where I, as an atheist, I'm supposed to be debating a Christian. And so you're a Christian. You have accepted the terms of this debate. So that stings. That's the first sting. That's the first sting. And this is the next sting.
You're really quite something, you are.
Aren't I? But you're really quite nothing, right? You're not a Christian.
Okay, I'm done with him.
This guy's expression is classic. This was kind of all of us for a moment going, "Gah, holy," but don't miss the. It's actually a. Okay, maybe that was it. Maybe that's the expression that we need to all have collectively for a second. And this goes to the "Why We Can't Look Away" Substack that Paul drew out. It is like a car crash, it's like, well, what am I looking at? But there is a profundity here that we don't want to miss. And I think Danny maybe is, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say bold enough to just go for it.
Video.
You're really quite something, you are.
Aren't I? But you're really quite nothing, right? You're not a Christian.
Okay, I'm done with him.
And Jordan can't hang. He can't hang. And that's so unfortunate because this is not the Jordan Peterson of the campus where he's debating people on compelled speech. He's just done. He's done with Danny. He can't keep going. He doesn't have time for Danny anymore. And I think that's why his team probably wanted him to do this appearance, because it was like putting Jordan on a college campus again. But I don't know if we're catching a moment. That stung. You really are nothing. Now, I don't think Jordan is nothing. I think Jordan... But to Danny's point, I can't let Jordan quite off the hook quite yet. What Danny is pointing at is, if you are lukewarm, I will spit you out of my mouth. Be either hot. This was the warning. This is the warning to the church in Smyrna, right? In the book of Revelation. Was it Smyrna? Does somebody want to look it up? See if I got it right. Don't be lukewarm. Be hot or cold. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. If you accepted the title of Christian, don't go back. If you deny me before men, I will deny you before my Father. And we don't want that for Jordan. And that's what Danny is pointing out. And that's profound. You really are nothing. If you can't say, yes, I'm a Christian, or no, I'm not, then what are you, man? Like, why am I here? Why did you waste my time? And that's just... Well, the one girl had the face for it, I think, where she just went, oh my gosh, like, what am I watching? And I think we are kind of watching something sad. So we'll move on. We will move on. I'll reiterate some points, but thank you for being here again. If you've got a question, let me know. I think Jordan Peterson knows what it means to be a Christian all too well. I think that realization is what he wrestles with. It's a commitment that is often more daunting than we give credit. Nathan, spot on. You have to die. And Jordan even pointed out, I think, somewhere, it might have been in that Jubilee video, that he gave up a lot. He gave up his career. He gave up this. He gave up this. But I'm sorry, but when Christ calls a man, he bids him come and die. That's the call of the disciple of Jesus. And then when you have died to yourself, you can sit there with Danny and go, I'm not done with you. I'm not done with you, Danny. I hear what you're saying. Because if you die to yourself, you're not offendable, really. You're not offendable, really. Maybe we still are to some degree. But the original video had the title changed. I think I need to hear from Jubilee. I need to hear from Jordan. The original title, One Christian versus 20 Atheists. I can't imagine Jordan. It would surprise me that if Jordan didn't know that was going to be the title. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He seemed like he was confused, at least in that moment with Danny. Now, part of the reason I think this is bigger than the Jubilee debate. It's bigger than that. I think the Jubilee debate revealed something that has really been there for Jordan, I think, for quite some time. And he did an interview with Joe Rogan recently, and I showed this in one of my other live streams, but forgive me for revisiting it. I think it does illustrate the point really well. Jordan was on Joe Rogan. He's talking about the Pharisees. He's talking about how they blaspheme, how they use God's name in vain. They just throw around this, that, and the other. They wear religious clothes. They want all the accolades and credibility that would come with the religious office, but their heart is really far from him. And he points out the religious clothes. And then I think 2 days later, he did this interview with Jesse Waters, and he talks about his clothes.
Pharisees who want to dress in religious clothing and obtain status in consequence, and they claim the beliefs, but really all they're after is attention.
What's that on your jacket?
Oh, this is Christian iconography.
So he wants to wear Christian iconography on his jacket. He's talked about his jackets before. He at first was uncomfortable wearing them, so I'll give him that. He wears the Christian iconography, but then when called a Christian, he goes, well, I haven't said that. And he is the one pointing out that the Pharisees use God's name in vain, dress in religious clothes. They want all the accolades that come with it. He wanted to sell a book called We Who Wrestle with God. He wanted to do a tour called We Who Wrestle with God. He wanted to build off of the success of his Genesis seminar, which I think he should have because it was great. He wanted to build off the success of the Exodus seminar. He wanted to do a gospel seminar. And even though Paul Vanderklay says that the gospel seminar that Jordan did, which is still tucked behind the Daily Wire paywall, is good, it's not effective. It's not. Is it useful the way the Genesis seminar was, or series was, or even the Exodus seminar? It's interesting that the closer he gets to Jesus, the more I would say his duplicity starts to become revealed. That's sort of harsh, but that's what it seems like. It seems like he is the Pharisee that he is criticizing here in this clip. And here's an illustration. I don't know how true this is, but it seems like, Jesus, he teaches in parables often. So allow me a parable. In a sense, Jesus, he sort of casts a wide net. He's a fisherman. He fishes for men. He teaches his disciples to fish for men. And he really does cast a wide net. I mean, his net essentially is universal. And like all nets, as it sinks into the sea, it collects fish, right? And then, these old nets that they would use, as you draw it closer to yourself, the net squeezes in tighter. And I think the fish in that net start to realize, oh, we're being drawn into something and we're not quite sure what it is. And then as the tension in that net grows, and as you draw nearer to the person of Christ, some of those fish want to escape. They want to jump out of the net. And that is, to me, feels like maybe what Jordan is wrestling with. What is up? Watch Well Podcast is in the house. Yeah, well said, Nathan. Thank you guys for being here. It's kind of late, so thank you guys for being here. You guys can check out the Watch Well Podcast. I think I have a podcast coming out there. We'll see. Let me know. TBD. But yeah, that's unfortunately something that I think when this Jubilee moment happened, it honestly didn't surprise me because I had seen this bubbling under the surface for a while. And again, these two interviews were about 2 days apart. He's talking about Pharisees with religious clothes, and then he sort of admits that he's wearing Christian iconography. But then later on in the Jubilee debate, he denies that, in a sense, he denies being a Christian. I mean, I guess that's what it sounded like. So that's what you go with. And so again, you could go back 10 months ago when he was on Joe Rogan, and I was like, Jordan Peterson is trying to present a gospel without a Christ, with no Christ. And that to me was the big sign. I think I picked up a little bit on that in the Nashville We Who Wrestle with God moment. It was awesome to be there. It was awesome to see, there were thousands of people there and all paid, $25, $50, whatever it was. I mean, I think this, you go back, I really appreciate Paul and what Paul has done. And Paul loves, he's a pastor and he cares for Jordan. But one of the things Paul has not said in his sort of critique of Jordan, he's mentioned the Daily Wire a few times, and he's mentioned Jordan's fame a few times, but he hasn't really zeroed in on just how much money Jordan is making not being a Christian. And maybe that's better, right? I don't know if I would like him to be, but he's making a lot of money doing this quasi-religious thing. And he has a lot of power and influence, maybe less now, but he did that We Who Wrestle with God tour in all over the place. All over the place. And, excuse me, let me see if I can get there without there's probably going to be an ad. So sorry if you're wearing headphones. Hopefully we have at least have the sound covered. All right. So there's there was a little clip. I did a little clip of the actual, oh, come on. I can't play my own video. Where is it? Right at the beginning. Whatever. You can sort of get a glimpse of that is really annoying. Sorry. Anyway, I had a picture of the crowd in the beginning, which I was trying to get to, but apparently YouTube doesn't want me to. Do you hear that? I was using a GoPro back then, so my nose looked really big. You can go back. I would actually love it if you guys, maybe I'll even go back and listen to some of this, but there was a lot of people there. And I think my ticket that I had was $25. So, and some of my friends bought the ticket and invited a group of people. And it was awesome. It was awesome to be there. But that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. I think in Nashville, he was at the Sounds Arena, whatever that's called. I want to say there's probably 8,000 people there. Something like that. All paying $20, $50 plus, probably average $50. And then he did that in how many cities? Whew. He made some money. Ooh, Nicodemus. Yeah, Nathan. 3 weeks. Okay. Check out Watch Well podcast. You may see yours truly. And I don't mean Christian Baxter. I mean actually me. Up there on the Watch Well podcast. In 3 weeks. Set your calendar. All right. Well, we won't revisit this too much, but you guys can check it out in the playlist. The Missing Person in the Gospel of Jordan Peterson. And worn out from being lukewarm. Nicodemus. Yeah, Nicodemus comes to Jesus by night. And it's so funny because Jesus points this out, right? Men who love darkness because their deeds are evil. And Nicodemus doesn't fundamentally understand the kingdom that Jesus is bringing, but he does later. He figures it out because John includes this, right, in the list of people who care for the body of Jesus after his death. Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea are mentioned. Jesus' disciples have run away. They've all run away, like in Monty Python. I personally think he is at a fork in the road. You can't have two masters. He's still fighting his idol of intellectualism, steeped in Jung, and the rest. And and entertaining and entering into a state of faith. I don't know, man. I honestly feel like I see less faith in Jordan Peterson recently. Sorry to say, because I don't want that to be true. I don't want that to be true. But I see a pissed off, grouchy Jordan Peterson, and that's one of the things. And let's play this clip from Paul diagnoses a lot of this really well, but he plays a clip. I'm sorry, Paul. I'm just gonna piggyback off of Paul here for a second. He did a great job sourcing these clips, and so and I will say, heads up, there will be a language disclaimer here. I'm not going to be able to bleep
We're
it out.
having literally the best sale we've
bear with me here as I set this up.
Here a bit after that.
I didn't want to. I still love Jordan Peterson. Absolutely nothing that I said about him previously is no longer true. However, the direction he has gone is something I do not want to be associated with.
So for a little bit of context, this is a guy who, similarly to Paul Vanderklay, covered Jordan Peterson, and obviously has a lot of history and cares for the man, I think.
And no, I'm not saying you would judge me for being critical. I judged me for being critical. I didn't want to. But because I was so strongly associated with Peterson, I did want to get that out there that he's moved in directions that I just don't want to be associated with. So I still love his old stuff. And in fact, the reason I find it so disappointing, the changes.
So this is where he gets into it. But you hear that he likes his old stuff. I think maybe this wave of Peterson, Chad the girl dad, pointed this out. He said this fourth wave of Jordan Peterson may have come to the shore where it crashes, and sort of that's where it dies.
He's made I disagree with. The reason I find them so disappointing is precisely because he had something that was so precious at the beginning. Jordan Peterson reached desperately suicidal people of all political persuasions in a way that I've never seen anyone do. Even though initially he was divisive and initially he was speaking out against the far left, initially he was doing it in such a good way that far left people were taking advantage of his material and pulling themselves out of suicidal states. I've spoken to them. He was reaching far left people, and he was reaching just people desperate about to commit suicide. He was even reaching school shooters that were planning on shooting up schools. He could reach those kind of people. He could reach them on the left and the right. His newer material, which I find more divisive, like his comment that girl isn't beautiful, and then he does a podcast with Michaela discussing his reasons for it. And the end of it, he says, so you know what? If you don't like it, fuck. I can't believe he did that. It's like, really? Anyone who didn't like that you called her not beautiful, you want to say fuck you to them all now? And so
I missed that one. Now, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting this guy, his channel name and his name. I did link Paul's video in the description. And then I disappeared myself. Not that way. Not that way. I love my life, and gosh, that is a profound. Like, Jordan reached people who were suicidal, who were violent, who were thinking of committing heinous acts of violence. He was able to reach them. Sometimes Jordan has been called the bridge. He allows people to cross, but he himself won't cross over. But then to just say F you if you don't agree with me, that's what you saw when he was talking to Danny. He just says, okay, I'm done with you. I'm done with you. I'm done with you. F you. What did he say? Up yours, woke moralists. That's essentially the up yours moment of like, I'm just not going to talk to you anymore. So the guy who sacrificed himself to help the person, the vulnerable person, is no longer there. And that's what I mean when I say I think it takes a lot more faith to be old school Jordan Peterson. And today he's just doesn't give a crap, it seems like. Yeah. So, excuse me. Yeah, good job. Yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and let's see if we can finish this guy's thought.
We don't want to help any of those people. And like, by the way, I didn't like that. I thought she was beautiful. I didn't like that you said it.
Yeah, so me being, I used to be an ally of Jordan Peterson. Now I'm basically hearing Jordan Peterson say, F you to me. It's like, well, hold on, man. Like, I was like in your camp, and now that's what I get. F you. Thanks, I guess.
And
Back
also,
at ya.
with a lot of Peterson's material, I just don't like how angry he's gotten. I don't like that he chose a side, and I'm not saying he chose the wrong side. I don't judge left or right as wrong. Initially, Peterson was not choosing a side and was saying he was metapolitical. This is something I liked it when he wasn't choosing a side because he was reaching both sides. Then he chose a side, and then he got more divisive, more angry, and more offensive.
Well, and I think, one of the other things that I just, it would be interesting to get Paul's take on it, something that he just didn't address is like, what happened when Jordan went to Daily Wire? Was he nervous about YouTube demonetizing him or what? I don't know. But, what happened? What happened? I think him going to the Daily Wire was a big piece of this. Where do we go from here? Yeah, we talked about, it's one thing to clarify what people mean by Christian. It's a whole nother to deny being a Christian, particularly if you've shown up to a Christian versus atheist debate. Paul's thread is great. Paul is a pastor, and he gives a pastoral analysis of the man and the mission. I would add that Jordan Peterson's role was particularly fueled by a lack of a public theologian. Yeah. So what is, and what do I mean by public theologian? I don't necessarily mean just a lecturer, a lecturer. But Danny is the kind of person that Jordan Peterson used to reach. And he doesn't reach Danny. He doesn't reach Danny in this moment. And a pastor, a public theologian, so I think some of the fault here is really on the church. How we've engaged in the public discourse online, even. It seems like within Christian social media circles, or particularly on YouTube, there's just a lot of like calling each other heretics, because and you guys are getting played by the algorithm when you do that. YouTube wants you to just be calling each other heretics, so they boost those videos. And so then, if somebody makes a video calling me a heretic, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to make a video calling that person a heretic. And then we're not embodying the kingdom. We're not embodying the Logos the way we talked about earlier in this live stream. We're just griping at each other. And that's essentially what, one of the things that I just don't like about this version of Jordan Peterson. He's just kind of bitchy, But yeah, so this is where I say, Paul doesn't mention the influence of the Daily Wire, the money that Jordan has been making, the fact that We Who Wrestle with God was trash. Like, the book was trash. I didn't read it. I just heard from a lot of people that it was trash. Now, I almost bought the book because I went to the We Who Wrestle with God tour, and I noticed at that tour, I was like, the book's not even out yet, but I can pre-order the book. Now, think about that. The book's going to be trash. Somebody from whoever the publisher was like, but probably Jordan, to the point about Jordan's sort of hubris and, maybe that We Who Wrestle with God, he had a specific project he wanted to do. Maybe he wasn't working well with his editors. They just pushed the book out because of timeline stuff, and then realized as soon as people buy this book, they're going to realize it's trash, and then it's not going to sell as well. So what do? We put Jordan on tour to do what Jordan does, which is just sort of do his monologue or dialogue a little bit. And you pre-order the book, and then a bunch of people pre-order the book, and then it doesn't really matter that people realize it's trash. They've already bought the book, So there's just some shenanigans going on that doesn't look good. All right, Cale Zeldin with a much more concise take. I thought I thought Kale's take was good. I left a link to Kale's, the platform formerly known as Twitter, his profile there. Jordan Peterson is not coming for your church, but as we just noted, I think Jordan Peterson's presence on the scene was due to a lack of a public theologian and a church presence to some degree. He could reach the suicidal kid. Does your church, that would be just be a very honest question. Does your church reach the kid who might be thinking about self-harm? And if not, why? And what are we lacking in a church if that's the case? He is filling a void created. So he's not trying to steal your share of the churching market. He is, however, filling a void created by the church's unwillingness to say basic true things, especially to young men, though not limited to them. Paul Vanderklay understood that he was not in competition with Jordan Peterson, but that Jordan Peterson was turning the fallow soil of a tired. This is where the fallow soil of a tired and desiccated church. Pastors and church professionals should thank him, as in Jordan, for waking up the somnambulant and turned off. I had to look up that word. Those who are not in motion. Many people returned to find that which he awakened in them. The dunking I see is really pathetic. And so hopefully, I think I understand Kale's point, but I think he misses what we just talked about in the beginning of this. Jordan accepted a debate where everyone assumed he was the Christian they were supposed to debate. And then when pushed on that, he denies it. And then when he's pushed on being nothing, he can't engage anymore. And I do think the "you're really nothing" is sort of the big punch. That's the big thing that stung. He kind of is nothing then. Like, why are you here wasting my time? And so there is a reason to dunk on him. Hopefully in a way that, like I said, I think Jordan Peterson has come full circle. He's ended 1 inch lower. Now, in the kingdom of God, that's a good thing. That's actually a good thing. Because it's not up to us to build the Tower of Babel up to the heavens. It is for us to live a life of humility, and to be humbled is okay. So the dunking on Jordan, I think, is part of the process. I actually think God providentially uses podcasting in some ways for these reasons. The jealousy is always a bad look. Yeah. Well, the dunking of and Kale is responding to some people in the church saying, "Well, you shouldn't have really paid attention to Jordan Peterson because he's not really a Christian anyway." And so I totally get that. I get that part. But an honest analysis of Jordan's shortcomings, I think, is okay. And hopefully Jordan is doing that analysis right now. That would be my hope. And I think he is. He's a smart enough person, and he has good people around him. But he's also made a lot of freaking money. That's why the title. Okay, the title is what's actually going on with Jordan Peterson. Right, that was my title. I need to pass the Grim Grizz test here. And if you look at the thumbnail, let's see if I can just give you the thumbnail right here while we're here. We'll see me twice, which is annoying. But it is what it is. So there's the thumbnail. Dang, I mute myself when I do that. Pete's concerned. He's trying not to do the cheesy YouTube face, but still trying to do kind of the cheesy YouTube face because that's what YouTube makes you do. But then we have Jordan vis-a-vis Jordan. We have Jordan courting the wild twin, to use a Martin Shaw-ism, but maybe the Joker. Which Jordan wins the day? Do we know? The Joker, or the guy who could reach a Danny? And I think hopefully today he's here. Hopefully today he's here thinking about this man. And I think I've seen this man the last couple of years. That would be my analysis. The Joker Jordan Peterson, looking for the opportunity and playing tricks. And maybe he got the better of himself this time around. And I don't know. But my hope is that you come full circle, you end 1 inch lower than when you began, and that's when you look to God. That's why AA, it's like you have to, in a sense, you have to reach the bottom of that before you start to look up, because you've reached bottom, right? So, thanks for the feedback on the thumbnail. Yeah. So, and then the title, what's actually happening to Jordan Peterson? Only Jordan Peterson knows. I don't know. We can surmise. But maybe Jordan doesn't even know. You know who actually knows? Jesus. That's such a Christian answer. That's the kind of Christian answer that Jordan Peterson, probably makes Jordan Peterson cringe, but it's actually kind of profound. Jesus is the great high priest who is familiar, Scripture says, with our suffering. He is the great high priest. This I think is also, notice in Luke 22, you guys can look it up. Jesus says to Simon Peter, he says, Simon, behold, Satan has demanded permission to sift you like wheat. But I've prayed for you. Oh, thanks, Jesus. What did you pray? What did you pray for Simon? That he would not be sifted like wheat? No, I've prayed for you that your faith may not fail. And you, when you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. That would be my hope for Jordan Peterson. Like I said, I sort of see a lack of faith in him. If we see a turn, then he will strengthen his brothers. And maybe, to use Paul Vanderklay's Fat Thor analysis, the superhero that's there inside will awaken and even have a good sequel or something like that. Okay, so Hebrews. What was that? Hebrews, is it 5? 5:8? I always get 5:8 and 8:5. We have a great high priest. Melchizedek. I still need to do a Melchizedek video. Anyway, so he is the great high priest. I'm looking for the word where it says he's familiar with our suffering. Anyway, I appreciate you guys being here. If you have a question, let me know. I don't usually live stream this late into the evening, but it looks like we've got some night owls in the chat. So thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Again, I usually, during the normal season, I'll put out a video every week, and then I'll follow it up with a live stream where we discuss the video, because there's always more to be said. Hopefully we're not adding to the noise, but what we're trying to do is build dialogues. And through the summer, you'll probably just find me live streaming once a week, but hopefully it's still meaningful for us all. So we got Kale's post out of the way. What else do we want to see? Yo, what's going on? Carly, good to see you. Good to see a few people I don't recognize. You think Jordan Peterson has made an impact now? Can you imagine what he would do if he had the Spirit? Yo, what if Jordan Peterson gets Spirit-filled? Spirit-filled Jordan Peterson is the only way we overcome Fat Thor. I think that's just the way it has to be. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, okay, that actually. So Paul had a mega thread. Oh, that's what I need. I need Paul's mega thread. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Paul Vanderklay's mega thread. Where is he? Shoot. Ooh, I thought I attached Paul's mega thread here somewhere. There it is. Okay. So Paul had a mega thread. Again, Paul Vanderklay, he's been doing Jordan Peterson analysis for quite some time. He comes from a Christian Reformed church. And, he's been in dialogue with Jordan Peterson for years. Now, at the very end of his mega thread, Grim Grizz posted this. And this goes to the Spirit. the point about the Spirit. Oh, sorry, rip headphone users. Sorry, I didn't get to. And again, YouTube got me. YouTube got me with the freaking subscription thing, and now they're just hitting me so hard with the ads. I don't know how much of this I can play, but what do you think about this with regards to Jordan and the Spirit? With regards to Jordan and the Spirit.
Intense religious experience at one point. So this was back in 1985 when I was a graduate student, and I was listening to the Jupiter Symphony. This happened, man. So this happened. I was really concentrating hard on that Mandela and the sky opening up and God sort of peering forth through the clouds. And that's exactly what seemed to happen to me. Is it was something like another dimension. Classically, something like the Holy Ghost, I suppose. While it was like being in heaven, I could feel myself transformed, transmuted as a consequence.
Okay, so the presence, something like the Holy Ghost, you got that?
Of this experience. Then I felt that whatever had descended, it seemed that as if it was sorrowful, and it departed from me slowly. Whereas I shook physically for about half an hour after this experience. Then I felt that whatever had descended, it seemed that as if it was sorrowful, and it departed from me slowly. Whereas I shook for about.
What? So the Spirit departed.
And that's exactly what seemed to happen to me. Is it was something like another dimension. Classically, something like the Holy Ghost, I suppose. While it was like being in heaven, I could feel myself transformed, transmuted as a consequence of this experience. Then I felt that whatever had descended.
So what happens? Does he grieve the Spirit? That's Grim. That's what Grim Grizz is pointing out. Does Jordan grieve the Spirit? I don't know how much of this I can play without getting totally tagged. But yeah, I guess it's on Grim's channel.
It seemed that as if it was sorrowful, and it departed from me slowly. Whereas I shook physically for about half an hour after that experience, like I was shaking, like you shake after a car accident. What is the story behind the logo that you use in your intros? Where did it come from? That logo is called The Meaning of Music, and it's actually a.
Okay, I think that's the point. Grib is posting that at the bottom of Paul's mega thread because is it possible Jordan had a moment, and then what did he do with that moment? If Jordan Peterson wants to make some more money, all he needs to do is Jordan Peterson baptism via pay-per-view. Yeah. Contrast that with like a Kat Von D baptism or something like that. Could be the next Lewis or Chesterton. Probably a stretch, but it makes me wonder. Yeah. Watchwell podcast, not Joe Rogan. Wait, what did I miss? Yeah. You can find the watch. Let's grab Parker's channel here, right? Is it well? So hey, is it just Parker that does this, or let's see? Do you have your own? You have your own channel as well, or what? There you go. We can leave. But I missed the point about whether it was Joe Rogan or Watchwell. Could be the next Lewis or Chesterton. Okay, so what is actually, we'll get to the point here. We're almost an hour in. Thank you guys for being here again. Hit the like button. Again, help the channel out a little bit while I'm not making so much content. Thank you. I don't usually ask too much of that, but what I usually do ask is to either leave a comment for me to read, because I do try to read every comment that I get, or share this with a friend and build on the conversation, the dialogue somewhere in meat space. What's actually going on? Again, like I said, only Jordan knows. Only Jesus really knows. But I do think he has tried to embrace the Logos, but not the Word made flesh. He wants the Word. He loves, again, to Parker's point, to Watchwell's point, he likes the Jungian stuff. And he wants to stay there, right? But does he want to be drawn into Jesus? Sorry, I'm getting a little distracted here because I'm trying to remember. Okay. I was trying to make sure. I was getting confused with Watch Well podcast and some of the other podcasts. I was like, Parker's behind the Watch Well podcast, right? Not some other guy or a team of people. So, so to Parker's point, he wants to sort of stay in that Jungian place. But that's not Christianity. Is not just the logos. It's the word made flesh. I mean, well, that's, I guess, like the full form of the logos. So it's not just the word. It's not just the word. It's the word embodied. And that seems to be where Jordan loses connection. And so he'll never, like Lewis and Chesterton are people who came into contact with the person of Jesus. Now, Lewis was already, that's the thing. That would be the comparison, right? Because a lot of people thought Lewis was washed up, and then he became a Christian later on in his life. That would be interesting. That would be the hero arc of Jordan Peterson. It would follow the Jordan. It would follow the Lewis arc, or does he go the way of the Joker? What happens to the Joker? Parker would know. He looks at movies and stuff like that. Oh, thanks, Miss McGillicuddy. Thank you. I was responding to Watch Well, jokingly saying that Joe Rogan is the next. Oh, okay. Got it. That actually, I think. All right, cards on the table. Who becomes a Christian first? We shouldn't play those types of games, but I actually think Joe Rogan is probably closer. I genuinely think that. Because again, it takes a certain kind of person to accept a debate that says Christian versus atheist and then deny being a Christian when you get there. I don't know what that means about Jordan Peterson, but I can't imagine that it's good. Whereas if you followed this channel for long enough, you know that I have theories about Rogan. Actually, since we're talking about Twitter, the platform formerly known as Twitter, let's see. Let me do this over here. Let me find my my thing. You guys talk amongst yourselves. I'll get that question, Nathan, here in just a second. I want to find a poll that I'm doing on the platform formerly known as Twitter. But I didn't bookmark it or anything, and I don't remember how long ago it was, and so I need to look at my profile. No, my profile for me. What did I post? I have a poll going that you guys can help me out with. As you may know, and this will show you the results, so you get the results beforehand. So there you go. You get some perks. You came to the live stream. You get some perks if this can be considered a perk. Now, I don't have a huge reach over there on the platform formerly known as Twitter, as you can see, but I have a theory, and I need your help. What are the top 5 topics discussed by Joe Rogan on JRE? Give me a pick of the 5th in the comments. Apparently, you can only do a poll with 4. I didn't realize that, so I just went with it. Psychedelics, alternative prehistory, alien UFO phenomenon, or comedy. I could have put MMA there, but I think all of Joe Rogan's really top topics find their way back to a biblical cosmology. And I've done videos on all of these. I've done videos on his conversations about psychedelics, alternative history with Graham Hancock, etc., aliens. He did the one with Diana Walsh Pasolka. I thought that was really good. And comedy. I mean, I think the Bible is filled with comedy. That's my take. I know some people take a more flatline view of it, but I really do think it's the living word. It's the word of God, living and active. And one of the ways that we witness that is through the fact that it's poetry and comedy. I mean, just read the Gospel of John. I mean, it's full of comedy. The Nicodemus passage that we were even talking about. Jesus, Nicodemus comes to Jesus at night, and Jesus is like, the men who do evil love the darkness. Or when he tells the blind man Bartimaeus, come over here. It's like, I'm blind. Where are you? I love that guy. I love that guy, Jesus. And so I think comedy really does play a huge role in the Bible. Really, the redemption story is the greatest trick God ever pulled on the devil. He takes death and uses it against the enemy, right? He uses the weapon of the enemy and turns it in on the enemy. And if you've ever, give me a 1 in the chat if your church has ever celebrated a what is called an All Fools Day. It's usually the Sunday after Easter. Well, anyway, just give me a 1 in the chat if you've even ever heard of that. And so it's yeah. So or give me a 0 if you haven't. Just let me know, and I'll explain it. Okay. Were you disappointed? Who he chose in the Jubilee video for the final discussion? It seems like he just wanted a softball discussion, which doesn't seem like Jordan Peterson. I don't know. I will be honest, Nathan, I didn't watch all the way through. I found the video very hard to watch, and I couldn't do it. So unlike this Substack that says why we can't look away, I kind of had to look away for at least for that Jubilee. Now, I do think they edited. This was not the order. That's what I picked up on. This was not the order of their appearance with Jordan. My feeling is that he maybe just got tired of it. I don't think this was the format for Jordan, and other people have pointed that out. I think that they were hoping that it was college campus like, and it really wasn't. People like Danny, people who showed up to this debate, online discourse has changed, and Danny clearly understood his moment, and he went for a viral clip. And again, that viral clip, honestly, is in some ways more powerful than the clip in context. And I'm sorry that that's the world we live in, but it is. And Danny understood that, and Jordan didn't. And so Jordan kept wanting to have discussions with people, and that's just not what the format was. So maybe he was a little tired and he just wanted to get out of there, and he got a softball one. He gets locked away in Arkham. Okay, so the Joker gets locked away. I think he gets broken out, though, doesn't he? 100% Joe Rogan is closer, I think, personally. Yeah, Nathan's with me on that one. Okay, yeah, who's got I can't take bets on stuff like that. That would be sacrilegious. Okay. I'm sticking with Jesus. And then versus Jordan, who says, I didn't say I was a Christian. Yeah, good point. You know what I need to do? I don't know how we do this, guys. I think moving forward, here's what I want to do. What would you guys think about this? What if I had a box here where chat was here? Because I'm over here like reading chat. How do I do this? Like, I don't even know. I need to get an extension. But anyway, I could do chat like that, but you let me know. And now I broke OBS. As I tend to do this basically every live stream that I do. And then I fail to reset it. And so I do another live stream, and it's always kind of like a little jacked. So, man, I again, there's always more to say. We didn't read all of Paul's thread. You guys can check that. I didn't link that. I linked his video, but you can follow Paul on the platform formerly known as Twitter. Yeah, anyway, there it is. I was going to link it, but would you like to see a similar video? Jordan Peterson versus 20 Christians. That would be actually amazing. That would be amazing. And you would have to, I mean, of course, he talks to Jonathan Pajot quite a bit. He's an Orthodox. So you would have to get somebody who, you would have to do, how would you do this? You could do 5 of each, 15 Orthodox, 15 Catholics, 15 Protestants, and then maybe 5 just whatever neo-evangelical normie nominal Christians, I guess, or something like that. that would be good. Feel free to nominate me if Jordan wants to come on my podcast. Certainly, yeah. Just give me the shout out, I guess. I mean, I think it would be great to see Jordan go on Paul Vanderklay's channel again, and maybe catch up with Paul, because Paul clearly cares for Jordan, and
if you think it might rain later,
sorry. again, YouTube has just got me. They got me. They got me. I would absolutely watch that. Hey, you know, while we're dreaming big dreams, go ahead and give me a shout out to Joe Rogan while we're at it. I could do the whole circuit. We could do, you know, who would be great is Theo Vaughn. You know, talking about comedy earlier. Theo Vaughn would be a hilarious person to talk to. Probably kind of vulgar, but also very, very like it takes a comedian to ask the former president, who then becomes the president, whether he's done cocaine or not. John Rich, press him on. Yeah, that's true. That is true. I mean, John Rich pressed him. What was the result of that? I actually feel like there was a good outcome there. Jordan didn't exactly, you know, of course, accept the terms, you know, Christian or whatever. But again, I think John Rich and many other people posed it to Jordan as a question, and that's why Danny's moment, that's how this moment was created, when Danny just says, "You are a Christian. Like, prove me wrong. You're a Christian, prove me wrong. Your wife is Catholic. You go to a Catholic church. You understand their doctrines. You're literally sitting across the table from me in a debate called One Christian versus 20 Atheists. You're a Christian, prove me wrong." And I think that was just a better way to, honestly, like, again, maybe it was a tactic. Maybe it was not in the spirit of good faith dialogue or discussion. But, gosh, you know, one other angle of this would just be to look at the body language that happened. I mean, look, like, Jordan he just scowled. He couldn't stop scowling. And that was really unfortunate. Okay. If you could have Jordan Peterson or Joe Rogan on your podcast, who would you choose? Sorry, Jordan, it would have to be Joe Rogan. Actually, it's Rogan. Yeah. Parker knows. Actually, if we go, let's see, can we do this really quick? Oh, it's late night. What are we doing, fam? We are just chilling. My wife is gracious to me. My kids are in bed. Listen to this. Since we're on Jordan, Joe Rogan, I think we can leave Jordan B. Peterson for now. We can look away. We can in fact look away. Here's what would have been so awesome. And you, if you've listened to my podcast for any length of time, you've probably heard me say this. But what I would love to see, I would give up going on Joe Rogan if I could have Michael Heiser go on Joe Rogan. That's what I would wish. I wish Joe Rogan could have had Michael Heiser on. Heiser has been mentioned on Joe Rogan's podcast a few times. Let's see. Is wrong. Sitchins is wrong. Yeah. So they, this was the moment. Graham Hancock brought it up as well. When they were talking, when Sitchins came on. Now I do have to be kind of careful here, because I think YouTube is gonna try to ding me. I'm gonna, here's a little trade secret. I know. So what do you have to do? You have to make a meaningful change to someone's original content to make it your own content. So there you go. That's a little 1.2 speed. I find 1.25 to be a little much. Yeah, I think Mike would have been good. He would have been good. And I miss Mike Heiser. And actually, what I'd like to do as the year goes on is find some more Michael Heiser. It's funny, as I have done this podcast in the last 2 years, if you read the description, I've been following Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, Russel Brand. I tried to sort of limit how much content I have to sort of sift through. I've kind of put Russel Brand on the shelf since he became a Christian. But what I saw in those three people were somehow podcasting was leading them to Jesus. It's like the Logos, right? You're following the Logos. And then you arrive at the person ultimately. And podcasting is dialectic. And so yeah, so I think there's a natural again, God's providential hand is at work leading people to Christ. I think we saw Russel Brand become a Christian. We see Joe Rogan being very softening on Christianity, let's say. We see Jordan Peterson doing whatever Jordan Peterson is doing. And what I want to do moving forward, probably after the summer or something like that, I want to dig up some more Michael Heiser, because as I've done this, it's really interesting. I've really found, and you can see this. I'm sorry, I'm taking a little break, and we'll get to the Joe Rogan clip here in a second. If you look at this playlist that I linked, is this the playlist? Where's the play? I think I deleted that tab. I have too many tabs open. If you look at the Jordan Peterson playlist that I have on my podcast, on my YouTube channel, you'll see that I often put Jordan Peterson with Francis A. Schaeffer, who's a Christian philosopher and thinker, because Jordan seems to touch on similar themes as Francis Schaeffer. What I would also do is I would tend to put Joe Rogan with Michael Heiser. And so they seem to be good interlocutors when it came to dialogue. And so what I want to do is dig up some more Heiser. I want to maybe make some more content just looking at Heiser's position and Joe Rogan. I think Joe will probably have Wes Huff back on. The next Christian will probably be Wes Huff, I would think. The next, like, sort of obviously Christian guest would be someone like Wes. I think Joe, he recycles guests, and I don't know exactly why he does that. Maybe it's a trust thing, but he really does recycle guests, and so that would be my take on maybe the next sort of overly Christian dialogue that he has. Now, of course, he can't have Michael Heiser on. Michael Heiser died 2 years ago or so. But through the mystical, magical power of the internet, we can bring Joe Rogan and Michael Heiser into conversation together. So if you have a Michael Heiser clip that you think would work well with what I do on this podcast, feel free to send it to me, either on the Twitter's thing, or the email is in my channel description. I think it's just strangetheology@gmail.com. And you can check that out. But Michael Heiser comes up again right here at, I think, minute 240 something.
Switched back and forth a couple of times because you were super into Zechariah Sitchin, right?
Yes.
And then you brought up Zechariah Sitchin in that meeting, and you were like, but there's this site, Sitchin is Wrong, written by...
Okay, so Sitchin is Wrong is the site that Michael Heiser posted to sort of debunk Zechariah Sitchin's. And Graham Hancock brought this up to Joe probably about 2 years ago.
A guy named Michael Heiser.
Right.
And then you cited all the Sitchin is Wrong stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe you've come full circle. I don't know.
Well, even the Sitchin is Wrong stuff, it's like the problem with debunkers is when you're dealing with...
Sorry, I do have to pause. And I forgot that he even mentioned Michael Heiser by name. And I think Joe's point here is good, which is a good point. I mean, Michael Heiser came from a certain vein, but I do think if Joe got a chance to sit down and actually talk with him. I mean, Michael Heiser went to UFO conferences and he was a speaker at UFO conferences, and he would teach from the Bible. And he did that until the people at the UFO conference got wind of what Michael Heiser was doing and kicked him out of the conference. I mean, that's just gangster. So somebody like that could totally go on Joe Rogan, and I think Joe would have a good impression of Michael Heiser.
When you're dealing with information that's sort of way outside your wheelhouse, especially translation of ancient languages, like I had Wes Huff on, and he was explaining to me, awesome. He's great. But
yeah, and Heiser points this out too about ancient Sumerian languages and stuff like that, and he really does point out that Sitchin doesn't really understand the language, but I think probably Heiser is a little bit more confident in our ability to understand than Wes Huff was.
He was explaining to me that he can't even read ancient Sumerian. Totally. And he's like, I don't think Sitchin really could read it. Now,
here's what's cool. Here's what I noticed also. along with the sacred mushroom and the cross and Brian Murray Rescue's work and stuff like that, Joe has these safety valves. When he gets too close to Christianity, he has these sort of safety valves. Now, Sitchin's was one of them, and he would just sort of revert to Sitchin's and be like, well, with all this other stuff, we don't really know. But now, I do think maybe Wes has taken one of those, because Wes was very compelling about the fact that, Sitchin's just was not. And so you do see, like, Joe's like, yeah, it's a fun idea, but it's really not good. So, and so we'll see. I haven't really combed all the way through this. It is interesting. They talk about AI, man. Maybe okay. Next week's podcast. Next week. It may be Sunday. It'll probably be Tuesday, but I will catch up with you guys. Then, and maybe we'll do a little bit more of this because they talk about the AI, and we have talked already on this live stream about the Logos being embodied. Okay, what is Christianity saying, and why is Jordan Peterson struggling with it? It's because it's not just the words. The word is embodied in the person of Christ, the Logos, the divine, the spoken word of God. And you could go to Proverbs 18. Yeah, it's so good. Anyway, wisdom was right there in the beginning, and God created through Christ, right? You can go to Colossians 1:17 also. What AI is doing is, gosh, this is so weird. Hang in there with me, guys, and then we'll probably land the plane. So listen to this. We are moving back into an oral tradition from a written tradition. What happens in a written tradition is I have an idea, and then I use the alphabet to lock that idea into a medium, right? Paper, clay, whatever it is. I use the alphabet. And Jacques Ellul points this out in the book Humiliation of the Word. Oh, was it Jacques Ellul? Anyway, as soon as I do that, though, something is lost in translation. I can't really give you my idea the way I could in a oral tradition. We could have a back and forth. We could have a dialogue. Now, there is some back and forth a little bit within kind of the written word, because we can just quote each other, right? And we can go back and forth a little bit with that. But yeah, something is sort of lost, I would say, in that written form that you can still have in your dialogue. So Jesus embodies this word. Now, what we have done, it's with our technology, is we have just flooded the internet with words, but they're kind of dead, right? That's the idea. The idea is I take the image that I have in my mind, the idea that I have in my mind, and I lock it into paper. I mean, I love books, so I'm not like anti-book or something like that, but I lock it into paper, and then in a way the word dies. It becomes, to shout out to Luke Thompson, it's disembodied words. It's words without spirit. They become kind of dead on the paper. They kind of die. They go to the page to die. And so that's what we've flooded the internet with, sort of dead language. And then the AIs consume that dead language. They consume all the words that we've sort of put out there in the internet, disembodied from a spirit. It's just words, and AI is just consuming, cannibalizing these words, or something like that. Some sort of like monster is sort of like eating these dead words. And so what you would create, the end result of that, and Joe and this guy, it's so funny. They totally miss it. They totally miss the spiritual aspect of what they're talking about. They go into simulation theory and stuff like that, what all kinds of modern people would do. But that AI essentially is the Antichrist. Like, I'm just saying that, right? Because in a sense, like, Christ is the Word embodied. And then if you have an AI that is just consuming dead words, but it's trying to take on spirit or form or both, then essentially you have the makings of the Antichrist. Not the embodied Word as Christ truly is, but a Frankenstein's monster that has been fed dead language and dead words. And then and then humanity, and again, Ephesians 6 works this out. It's not just the spiritual world, it's humanity and the spirit. This has officially become an attacking the darkness stream. Whenever we invoke Ephesians 6, it becomes an official attacking the darkness stream. It's not just spiritual forces. It is spiritual forces and world forces. Some translations have this as cosmic forces. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood. And so some people think this, okay, so it's not against flesh and blood, check, it's just spirit. Well, hold on. But against rulers, against powers, against the world forces of darkness, against spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. So if world forces and spiritual forces are the same thing, then it's redundant. Paul is telling us that these world forces, the people making AI, let's say in my scenario, that may or may not be true, let's hope it's not true. These world forces will ally themselves with spiritual forces. And just like C.S. freaking Lewis worked out in the third book of the Ransom trilogy, That Hideous Strength, they will make a container for a spirit. And the spirit will enter that. And then you get a Frankenstein's monster that has been fed dead language combined with the spirit. And you get essentially what is an antichrist. Schaeffer says the Antichrist who is coming is not the non-Christ. The Antichrist will be like Christ in some way. In what way? Well, embodied word, maybe. That's what we'll talk about next. I'm gonna catch up on chat real quick, and then we're gonna say goodnight. Thank you guys again. I don't know if we have 22 people here. If you're here, wave or something. Maybe we got bots. I don't know. Thank you for whoever's here. You're not being trolls. You are engaging in the dialogue, and I love that. My number one would be Michael. Wouldn't be Michael. It'd be Vody Bacham. All right. And the voting is not quite my flavor, but that's okay. Heiser's biggest impact for me was my surrender to Jesus. His work opened my Bible, truly helped me begin my walk on that narrow path. Miss McGillicuddy, I think that's where you and I are kindred spirits. I was searching high and low for a good commentary on Genesis chapter 6. And Michael Heiser had one, and where nobody else really wanted to touch that chapter. Or maybe it was Genesis 4. Where's the Nephilim? Anyway, Nephilim stuff. Heiser helped me to understand my own high strangeness, experience, and trauma. Yeah, okay. Well, if you want to talk high strangeness, man, hit me up. It's funny. I did a podcast on near-death experiences, and I completely forgot to reflect on my own near-death experience. But mine was kind of ho-hum. So I know you're talking about something different than a near-death experience, but I do hear the word trauma there. So I see that, and that is so encouraging to hear that Michael Heiser's work helped you do that. I think what Miss McGillicuddy is touching on is that when we can understand the story of Scripture, stories heal us. I really think that. I know that sounds weird, but the podcast is called Strange Theology. You can actually go back to one of the videos I did. It was maybe a live stream. Things are changing. Theology of storytelling and the Christian mythopoetics of Martin Shaw. We kind of talk about this. There's the Jordan Peterson Joker there. He makes a little appearance. Stories heal us. And one of the reasons why Jordan Peterson was a lightning rod in this cultural moment is because the church created a vacuum for him. There was no public theologian connecting people to the living word of God. And Jordan got people close. I don't think he couldn't lead people to a place that he's never been, but he could bring them near. Thanks for being here, Parker. I'm glad he engaged you. Episode coming soon. My favorite so far. That's encouraging to hear, brother. Thank you. Sounds good. Dead internet theory. Yeah, we could do it. Okay. Indeed. Okay. Down to talk high strangeness. Well, maybe I'll hit you up on Twitter or wherever we connect, Discord or whatever, what have you. All right, so I'm gonna call it for the night. Thank you guys again for hanging in there with me. I really did need this. I needed to just sort of sit and chat with some people on the internet. Thank you for showing up and being those people. Today was a strange day for me. So yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging. Again, share the show with your friends if you want. I'm going to disappear for a second, and then I'm going to wait for the stream delay to wear off, and I will catch you guys in the next one.